You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com, which you can get early every other Tuesday. That's we determined that, right? Every other Tuesday over at patreon.com/thunderquack. Or, you can wait and get it late. Something about Patreon producers. It comes out on Fridays for everybody else. If you're a Patreon producer like JJ Samuel or Brian Morawski, then you're definitely getting it early. But is a podcast. We're going to talk about geeky stuff. A million trailers came out yesterday. We're going to talk about, over the last week, I guess, because some of them came out ahead of the, quote, big game. We're not allowed to say the other word. We're not allowed to call it what it is because
the
we'll
superbly alorific game.
Yeah. Even that I think is like they're like super litigious, right? Somebody would have to be listening to the podcast for us to get sued. So I think we're safe. But I'm one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin. Don't worry, there's no sports people listening here.
Yeah. What I want to do is just go longer and longer every week before we introduce ourselves.
On the intro?
Yeah, to the point where it's like, did they finish the intro yet? It's like, no, we just did the whole episode, and then right before we
and then we say, by the way, this is who we are.
Yeah, man, so many things to talk about. I'll just say, because Amanda, you probably haven't watched any of the new Sonic the Hedgehog 2 trailers, so there's not a lot to discuss there.
Excuse you.
Have you?
Definitely
have you watched them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So pop quiz hotshot. What's the what's the most exciting thing in the most recent Sonic the Hedgehog trailer?
Okay, well, because I don't know what it actually would be. Isn't it the big like metal thing, like the big like mech or whatever?
Okay. Cool thing? So you have watched it. Just super quick, in the nature of the blue hedgehog himself, will be really fast. I said that when we got the first one 2 years ago today, actually, the last movie that I saw in the theater before the pandemic, Cara and I went and saw it, and it blew our minds, and it was so good, and it had no right being as good as it is. We have watched it no less than 10 times since then.
Wow.
I love it. It is one of my favorite family movies for sure. Like awesome. if we kind of like put it into that category, like just sort of the kid, friendly family sort of thing, like all the Disney movies and whatnot. It's in like the top 3, which I never thought I was gonna get a Sonic the Hedgehog movie in live action that actually delivers decent. Right?
Yeah.
Much less that I'd be getting a sequel, and that sequel would also have Tails. I mean, it would have to have Tails, right? Yeah. But it's also got Knuckles. Not to mention the fact that Knuckles is voiced by Idris Elba. Like, what? No, that doesn't make any sense.
I didn't know that he voiced Knuckles. That's hilarious.
And then to get that trailer and for them to be like, hey, check it out. Sonic and Knuckles are going to be snowboarding, which is like such a classic Sonic trope. So fantastic. And also, Robotnik has a giant mech, which like it's just like, because in the last movie, if I'm being perfectly honest, as much as I love it and I said all that good stuff about it, his ship at the end is really cool looking, but it doesn't have the aesthetic. Like, it's a very different direction, right? And I say all of that, and I'll like put the asterisk that like Andy Poon, our friend, designed that thing, right? Like he worked on, or did he design I think he worked on the jet. He definitely worked on the costume for Robotnik. But I so like we know people who worked on that movie. It's still not my favorite thing ever because it just doesn't have that Robotnik feel to it, right? Like Robotnik has a certain aesthetic to his stuff in the video games that was kind of missing. It was almost like too nice. It was too cool, but it's fine. It fit for what they were doing in that movie, and I like it for what it is. It's a good design. But as like a hardcore Sonic fan, it's not a giant Eggman robot. And then they're like, hey, in the new one, it's a giant Eggman robot. And it's like bigger than it's ever been in any of the video games. Like they were like, we heard you guys like giant Eggman robots. So we put a giant Eggman robot in your giant Eggman robot. Like it is, I can't believe that this movie is a real thing and that I am going to get to sit in a theater with Kara and watch this, and hopefully Cassie can sit as well. But
that poor little girl, just like a little quick segue.
Yeah.
They try so hard to get her to watch this. And she just has no interest.
None.
And it's adorable because she'd rather do anything else. And then Kara's pretty good at it. Like, you have trained that girl to watch movies, and it's impressive. Like, when she was real.
I used to take credit for it, but then Cassie being Cassie, I'm like, oh no. If there's any credit to give to Kara here, it's just genetics. That like she's just comprised of, I know that it's like like from a biological standpoint it's 50-50, like that's how science works, but there are also dominant genes and recessive genes, right? And so like all of the dominant genes from me of like the geeky stuff and like loving movies and TV and all of that stuff, Kara got all of it. Cassie, none. Zero. Cassie doesn't care. Yeah. She's like, whatever. And I just know, like, I'm going to have to, like, sit through field hockey games or something. It's just, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to love it because I love her. But Kara and I are definitely, like, simpatico with that stuff. We're on the same wavelength. Yeah. And that's been, like, since day one. Like, I talk about, I took her to the movies when she was, but it was, like, before her first birthday. We went and saw the Muppet movie in the theater.
Oh wow.
And she sat through the whole movie. Like the last probably 20 minutes cuz she'd been in her stroller for it. So in the last 20 minutes she was getting fidgety. She got out of the stroller and sat on my lap to watch the rest of the movie. But she finished the Muppet movie. I'm not talking about Muppets. We're not talking about like whatever that was, 2018, 2020, whatever it was. Not 2020, like no, even older than that, like 2012 or something like that, Muppet movie with Jason Segel. That's not the Muppet movie we're talking about. We're talking about like Steve Martin, like moving right along, like that Muppet movie, which is a slow movie with a lot of grown-up jokes that go right over a kid's head. And she wasn't even like a year old, and she sat through that. So like with Kara, like it's been since day one. It's just who she is. She loves it. Nice. So yeah, Kara and I are going to be sitting glued to the screen for Sonic, and Crystal is probably going to be running around the theater trying to keep Cassie from ripping seats off of their hinges and stuff. God knows what she'll be doing. But
it's never gonna go away. Just so you know, me and my sister, there was a lot of things that when we were younger, my sister was cranky and she cried a lot and she was always hungry. And I feel like a lot of those things
are still true
to this day.
She's not here to defend herself either. So
she is not. Anyways, carry on.
So Sonic 2 is shaping up to be just as much fun, if not more fun, than the first one. I can't wait. It looks fantastic. And they tweeted today because it's Valentine's Day. The scene, it's in the first trailer of when Robotnik comes back and Agent Stone is like working at the coffee shop and he just like drops the coffee because he's like, the doctor is back. He's so excited. They showed a little bit more of that scene as like a Valentine's Day thing because Agent Stone is in love with Dr. Robotnik, and one of my friends on Twitter replied to it with like, "This is like," so, I can't remember exactly what they said, but it was like it's total gay energy or whatever, like, or there's totally gay goals or something like that. Where, and I was like, yes, absolutely, and I love that like the marketing is not afraid of it, like Disney is with Star Wars. They're terrified. They're terrified to imply that anybody who's like queer in any way even watches their content. It's actually, it's getting to the point now where it's actually kind of super frustrating. It was just a little bit of an annoyance when like Rise of Skywalker came out and Oscar Isaac was like, I wanted to make Poe gay, but they wouldn't let me. And I was like, yeah, that's dumb. I understand why though. Now I'm at the point where it's like, make someone in Star Wars gay or I'm lighting it on fire. Like I'm really like, I'm not asking for anything crazy. Just make a gay character, right? Like I feel like that's so not asking for much in 2022 to just like make a pretend space wizard like another pretend space wizard that's the same gender, right? Like,
I mean, they did in Rise of Skywalker. They have the two women.
There were two background characters that kissed. Yes, a character who is in all three movies in the sequel, but then is never named in a single one of those movies, kisses another woman. You're right.
I didn't know she wasn't named.
She has a name, but nobody ever says it in the movies.
You have to be named in the film. That's not cool. You have to be named in the film. Somebody has to use your name.
Maybe somebody does in The Last Jedi, but I don't think that anybody ever says her name. But anyways, I mean, like, make a lead character gay. Let Oscar Isaac and John Boyega kiss. And go ahead, but like go ahead and do it in a way that can be edited out for foreign audiences, because then your movie isn't even legally allowed to play in some countries. I am, and this is the perspective of a mostly straight cisgendered white guy, so take that for what it's worth. Many grains of salt, a whole pile of them. I barely am even allowed to have an opinion on this, but like, I feel like that, like, if that's what we got to do in order to get it for us, I feel like that's a price that I'm okay with, for Star Wars to just do something a little bit gay.
The thing is, it's the bare minimum, right?
Yeah,
it's the bare minimum of like, because it doesn't actually count in many like spectrums of like representation where you're like, if you can cut it out, it doesn't even
for sure
anything. But
I would prefer that it's more like Eternals, where like, for all of the flack that I'll give Eternals for being a very boring film, and like I have no intention of ever watching it again, the fact that Phaistos, like, it's not just an aspect of his character, it's actually a plot point in the story, right? Like, his relationship with his husband, it's not like he's not like, I'm gay so I'm gonna save the world. It's like, I love this man, therefore this, like, humans are worth fighting for, right? Like, it's a part of the plot that he has a family, and it just so happens it is, from my perspective, again, many grains of salt raining from the sky, but from my perspective, it's like, that's what you want, right? Like, that's what, like, and when I say like it's 2022, you got to at least put a gay person in this, right? Like, I'm not talking about like what we should have, what we deserve, which is like, have some like non-binary characters, have a trans character, have, like, especially in Star Wars, where like have an entire species where there's like 16 genders. It doesn't like it defies categorization, and make that a part of the story, because you can, and that's what sci-fi is for, and that's what we're supposed to do with Star Wars. But instead, we'll just put some robot parts on some people and we'll act like we did something diverse. And I love the mods. Well, let's talk a little bit about Boba Fett right now. I loved a lot of what they did on Book of Boba Fett. We're not going to spoil plot necessarily, but like, just talk about some of the cool stuff in it, because Amanda has actually watched the entirety of it, which I was proud of her and surprised by. But
mostly because people didn't tell me that it was a story within a story, and then it got interesting because all the spoilers kept coming up on my feed, and I'm like, oh, I'll watch this show.
Yeah. But Yeah, I mean, like I love a lot of the directions that they pushed it. I also feel like after the third episode, the story falls apart. Like it just kind of
Oh
splinters
yeah.
and goes off in 6 different directions and never really comes back in a satisfying way at the end. Crystal and I just watched the last episode again last night. Her first time, my second time watching it, and it's so much fun. And the whole series is so much fun. But in those first 3 episodes, I really felt like they built something up with, and I don't think that this is a spoiler, like because it's sort of, it was already implied by what we got in Mandalorian, right? His time with the Tuskens was so impactful. And then, like, in the fourth episode, they're just like, we're shutting it down. It's done. That part of the
Yeah, it
story's
doesn't.
done,
Yeah.
and it's so unsatisfying. And I was really holding out that, like, by the end of the season,
They were gonna bring it
that
back
they were gonna
around. Yeah.
that something that it was like, oh, we don't know the full story, and they tried. I think they thought that what they gave us at the end was enough of a, like, hey, and then this comes back and there's consequences to it. But it's like, I
No.
I don't think that anything would have played out any differently if
No.
that
It
wasn't an
wouldn't.
aspect of what gets said. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I'm
Yeah.
kind of dancing around it, but like, if a
Well,
certain character didn't say a certain thing to him, I don't think that it would have stopped them from having the fight that they had, right?
okay.
Like, it wouldn't have been like, oh, you know what? I think we can come to terms on this. Let's sit down and have a drink. I think they were still gonna fight each other. It was gonna happen regardless. So it was kind of like, I don't know. What I wanted was certain characters to make a surprise comeback at the end and save the day, and that's not something that happened. That's not to say that they couldn't course correct in future seasons of television shows and bring back certain characters, because, you know, it's entirely possible. But um, yeah, I'll put it this way: there was a romantic angle that I found really, really interesting, that I invested very heavily in by the end of the third episode. That is then sort of potentially squashed, but that there's maybe just a shred of a possibility of that character coming back. But
Do
again, Star Wars is terrified of having anything remotely resembling a relationship in any of their stories anymore. I don't know what
I don't know.
happened after The Last Jedi, but I think, like, they did that. Like, Ryan Johnson was like, hey, Pride and Prejudice in space, and a whole bunch of women were like, oh my god, Star Wars for us. And then a whole bunch of whiny man babies were like, what are you talking about? They're just friends. And then everybody fought for 4 years, and Lucasfilm is like, don't ever do that ever again. The most that you can ever get is Han Solo kissing a girl, because we know that Han Solo kisses girls, so that's okay. They like it when Han Solo kisses girls, but, like, Luke Skywalker has to be like but he has to be like just like completely androgynous, which is fine if that's a statement that you're gonna make. I not androgynous, but like asexual, right? It's fine if that's a statement, right? But it's not a
I have a.
statement. It's just like a Luke is never gonna we're never gonna talk about it because it brings up stuff about Mara Jade from the Legend stuff, and everybody's just gonna get
But
mad no
nobody
matter
wants it.
what we do, so we're not gonna do anything. And it's like,
Okay.
hey, how about you guys pick a lane? Just pick a lane. Figure out
I
what Star
posit
Wars
something for you,
means and do something with
and
it.
then
Go ahead.
do something about it, or just make different stories for different people. Okay. This is like a spoiler for Mandalorian season 2.
That's fine. People have had their chance.
Yeah. Okay. But like, so Luke exists and Ahsoka Tano exists.
Yeah.
Would it be super weird if they got together?
Yeah.
Is she
Yeah,
like
it's
his
inappropriate.
grandma?
She's like his aunt. She's like his cool aunt.
Okay.
Yeah, no. She's
Okay.
like, if in a circumstance where the Jedi Order doesn't fall apart because Anakin makes the right choice, which is the second that he finds out that Padme is pregnant, he goes to Obi-Wan, he says, Obi-Wan, I have something I need to tell you, and then we need to figure out how to deal with this. Padme is pregnant. I love her. And then Obi-Wan goes, cool, you should just leave the Jedi Order. And then Anakin would be like, but I'm supposed to be a great Jedi. And then Obi-Wan goes, yeah, and you can do whatever you want. Like, no one can stop you from using the Force. No one's going to take your lightsaber away. You just can't be a part of the Order because we have rules in the Order. And like, you're already a Jedi, dude. Like, go do this other thing. We got this. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm gonna finish the war, and you just go be a dad. And so if that happens, and Obi-Wan and everybody, because Palpatine doesn't have Anakin, so he doesn't know what to do. So he's like, I'm gonna use Dooku, and then Dooku sucks. So he does. He ends up, his whole plan ends up falling apart. They find out that he's the Sith Lord. Anakin doesn't run in when Mace Windu's about to execute Palpatine, which is the right call, and be like, no, you can't do it. And then he's like, this isn't the time for a conversation. And then gets, his hand cut off and thrown out a window, but instead just kills Palpatine in that moment. And it's like, oh, we did it. We defeated the Sith Lord. Anakin is happy with Padme. The Order is still intact. It's very flawed, but it could be worse. And Anakin and Padme have their kids, and Ahsoka's already left the Jedi Order at this point, and she shows back up, and it's like, oh, this is your aunt. This is Auntie Ahsoka, right? Because she's like 19 when they're born. So it's like, yeah, no, it would be weird. It would definitely be weird. Okay. No, it's not an appropriate relationship.
I don't know. But I just like that they're both alive. That's just cool.
Yeah,
to me,
it's fantastic.
There's like, they can just tell all the possibility of storytelling with Star Wars is just so infinite, and it's just so exciting, and it just, I don't know.
I am at the cynical point where, like, I agree with you in the sentiment, but Lucasfilm is so terrified to tell any stories of consequence that they just keep giving us these like snippets. That's a pun, by the way. If you're a hardcore Clone Wars fan, that's a very funny pun. Matt Campbell right now is like, that's a good one. Very funny. I was about to explain it. I'm not going to explain it. If you don't know, that's your fault.
I know.
Go watch the Clone Wars.
Isn't Snip a character? Isn't Snip a character?
Yes. Ahsoka's nickname is Snips. That's what
Okay.
Gotcha. Anakin calls her.
I made you explain the joke.
You did. But they just keep giving us like they keep giving us crumbs and going like, but it's at the point where like they've now compromised so much of the meal by just giving us tastes of it that it's like, it's like, please tell us the story of how Ben Solo becomes Kylo Ren. Right? Like give us the rest of the context around what happens in The Last Jedi. Please tell that story somewhere. And they're like, here's a comic book that kind of tells the story, but like, we're not really going to let anything happen in the comic because we might want to do something else later on. So we want to like give ourselves room to tell a story later. And it's like this procrastination thing of like, they keep just kicking the can down the road of like, okay, guys, here's a little piece. We're not going to tell that story right now, but like, it's there. And it's like, honestly, stop being a tease and just either like give us the goods or don't. Right? Like, in a culture of consent being very important, I want to be really clear what I mean by that. But it is a thing of like what's going on here? What is this relationship? Are we going to do this or not? Right? Because Star Wars keeps going like, like if you stick around, maybe I'll let you do some stuff. And it's like, listen, Star Wars.
This is a very weird analogy.
I've been in this relationship with you for a very long time. I think I've shown you that I'm committed and you can trust me. So either this is going to happen or it's not. And Star Wars continues to be like, I don't know, maybe. And it's like, stop it. Knock it off. Just tell a story with Luke Skywalker. Stop having like these like tertiary moments of like, and you know what he's up to. It's like, yes, please just make a story of consequence about it, right? And it's like, huh, Ben Solo shows up in this Lego short. What? Why are you telling us this part of his story in a Lego short that no one's gonna watch? Right?
Is there
But they
actually
do.
legitimately a
Um
thing?
yes, there are stories that are like, hey, we're gonna play with the character of Ben Solo with Kylo Ren with these things. And it's like we're gonna imply more stuff about his relationship to Snoke and what happened there. But it's in a Lego movie. It's in a Lego holiday special where Rey gets a rock that allows her to go back in time. Like it's insane that that's the most Reylo content that we've gotten since Rise of Skywalker is in a damn Lego. And like I love Lego Star Wars. So like this is coming from somebody who thinks that that content is phenomenal, but the point being that like it shouldn't be in a Lego Star Wars holiday special with like 3 vignettes in it. It should be like you should tell these stories in real meaningful ways. Or don't, or just go tell some other story, right? But they're so terrified because of what happened with Last Jedi and Solo to tell the wrong kind of story with the most bankable characters that they're just not doing anything that's important at all. And they're just like the most like major thing that's been announced recently is actually just got announced today because it's Valentine's Day, is they announced that they're putting out a book about Han and Leia's wedding and then their honeymoon, and their
Oh wow.
honeymoon takes place on the Halcyon, whatever it's called, which is the starship that is the Galactic Star Cruiser in Florida, the hotel, the new hotel
Oh
where you
jeez.
go and like you stay and it's like
Wow.
they pretend you're on a
Yeah.
cruise in outer space,
Which I'm
right?
so excited. I want to do it so badly,
Oh,
Mike.
it costs
So
thousands of dollars. Like you
yes, but
understand?
I
Have
would
you?
like to do it.
Okay,
I've seen.
it's
I
ridiculous
have
how it
I
is
have no
not
children nor a
reasonable.
mortgage, Michael.
Yeah,
I can go
yeah, go have
spend
fun.
if somebody on this podcast wants to come down with me to Florida, like honestly, nobody can go because everybody has the same reaction you do. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
I want to
it's
do it,
ridiculous.
but
It's way too
like that
expensive.
price tag is just so absurd that I cannot, in good
It
conscience,
is.
support it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I
it's
mean, yeah. Well, the thing is, again, it's like a very specific kind of thing where I would have to not,
yeah.
I could save up for a down payment on a house this year, or
Or you could do
I
that.
could go
Yeah.
I could go do
Here's
a
the
Star
thing.
Wars like weekend.
Here's the thing, and I'm gonna sound like I take it too seriously, but just humor me for a minute.
No, I do. Mhm.
Walt Disney had a very specific dream for Disneyland, and like he sat in a park and watched his kids on a merry-go-round, right, a carousel, and it was like he was like, I want like there should be a place where families can go that like is this but better and bigger and like the full thing. Like this is just a little carousel in the middle of a park in the middle of a bad neighborhood sort of thing. Not a bad neighborhood, but like the rest of the neighborhood is like whatever, right? Like there's industrial 3 blocks away, there's commercial stuff over there. Like there should be a place for families to go. And he was like, I'm gonna make that place. And that's what Disneyland grew out of, right? That's why the carousel is in Fantasyland at the center, right? He had a vision and a dream for that, and it was meant to be accessible. It was meant to be for everyone. And in the last 20 years, Disneyland has slowly gotten away from that to the point where it's like the ticket prices have to go up, inflation and the cost of things and
Yeah.
whatever, and that's fine. They should also be paying their employees a lot more money. Along with that, raise your ticket prices as long as people are getting a living wage. I don't care. I'll pay more money for it. That's coming from a privileged place of me being able to afford to pay higher ticket prices. Some people can't. So that's still another thing that bugs me, right?
Right.
But this one takes that and goes so far past what Walt Disney wanted for his theme parks for his attractions. Even when they were building Disney World, when he died, there still the idea was not we're going to build it bigger and better so we can charge more money. The idea was we're going to build it, we're going to put all of this in one place so that people can go and they can experience all of these things in one vacation without having to go on 6 different vacations to do all of these different things, right? Like he was still thinking with all of the different parks at Walt Disney World Resort of like, this is affordable. This is the most affordable thing. We'll do it in Florida. It's cheap, right? It's cheap to stay in Florida. People can get here from on the East Coast. Like he was always thinking in that way. And I mean, like he also wanted to make money, but he had business people on the other side of it that were always mad at him because he was always like, and then we're going to do this. And they're like, yeah, but how are we going to make money off of that? And he's like, I don't care. We're doing this for the people. The money will come, whatever. Right. Like he was very much an ideologist in that way. And this Galactic Star Cruiser is like the antithesis of that ideology. And it upsets me because it's like, this is the thing that everybody was upset about when Disney bought Star Wars, that they were going to do stuff like this. And they have. And it's like, part of me being upset is like, I'm mad that I don't know how we would save up to do that. I don't know how. It's not that we couldn't. We could. I don't know what we would be giving up, whether it's a bigger house or, you know, like an education for the girls or a new car. Like those should not have to be the conversations for a 2-night stay at a hotel that just has LED screens instead of windows. Because that's what we're talking about. We're not talking, it doesn't actually fly into space, guys. It's just a building with no windows where they're piping in sound effects to make you think you're on a starship. How is that so much more money than a hotel? It doesn't make sense, except that they know that some people are going to pay it. And I'll bet you anything within the next 5 years, they're going to reduce the costs on it significantly because they're going to burn through that audience in the first 6 months of it being open.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be like, well, the Disney bloggers have already gone, guys. They're not going again. Yeah. Like, did you change it? They're not coming back. So, like, it's going to be real exciting for the first year. And then all of a sudden it's going to be like, how come nobody's booking stays? Well, it costs a family of 4 $10,000 to stay at this resort for 2 days. And that's not even enough time to do anything else in Disneyland. So they're like, you're doing your 2 days at the Galactic Star Cruiser, and then you're transferring over to one of the other resort hotels for the rest of your $7,000 Disneyland trip. Right. Yeah. So it's like, it's not even like replacing your Disney World trip. It's actually just like a tax to go do this other thing on top of what needs to also be another Disney World trip. Because you're not going all the way to Florida just to go for 2 days to the Star Cruiser, one of which you get to go to Galaxy's Edge and go on 2 rides, right? Because there's only 2 rides in Galaxy's Edge. So like, it just, I look at it and I go like, how is this sustainable? This isn't sustainable. There's no way that they can do this for the next 10 years at these prices because they're just going to run out of those people. Unless the experience is so good that like you are going to blow your savings on this thing and come back and be like, this was so amazing. I am going to work overtime hours to pay for another trip to it. But I don't see that being the reality. I actually see you going and doing it and coming back and going like, I don't think that was actually worth me spending all of that money, but I guess I'm glad I did it. Right? Like you'll have to justify it because you did spend that money. You did just spend $4,000 on a 2-night stay or whatever it is. Right. They're not even nice rooms. Like the kids' beds are like recessed bunks in the wall, which is a very cool Star Wars thing. It's not a nice hotel room. hey, go sleep in a cupboard, kid. Like it's a fun experience. It's not nicer than staying at the Kilimanjaro suite where you walk out onto your balcony and there's a flippin' giraffe eating from a tree 10 feet away from you. Right? Like,
I'm sorry.
That's a thing in Florida. So like if I'm going to
no
Florida
way.
and I'm paying like $4,000 for 2 nights, that's what I'm doing.
Mm,
That's what I'm
yeah.
doing.
I mean,
I
yeah,
want to
no
wake
way.
up in the morning and look and see the Serengeti out my window, right? Like
Yeah.
like I can put a 70-inch screen on the other side of my window and pipe in an annoying hum sound and pretend I'm on a spaceship at home. I can do that. It's fine.
I'm glad you're not
Whew.
bitter about this at all, though.
We're supposed to be talking about trailers, Amanda.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's a Star Wars tangent. I'm in a very Star Wars brain right now. I'm planning my whole life for like the next like 3 months, and Star Wars is coming up. I don't know, Disneyland.
Book of Boba Fett is somewhere between good and great, with some disappointing moments. I think everybody who hasn't watched it should go watch it, and then go listen to Faster, More Intense, where Joe and I have
And I will say,
talked about every episode.
everybody that has watched the first 3 episodes, it's like, regardless, that's not the show. Right? Whether you like it or whether you hate it, right? It's like, watch it. And then again, if you like it, cool. Hopefully you keep liking it. And if you don't like it, just get through the first 3 episodes and then it changes dramatically. So
because it's gonna be a different thing. Jurassic World Dominion. Speaking of things that might not be what they seem, the trailer for Jurassic World Dominion finally came out. They've been marketing this movie for 4 years, and part of that's the pandemic. Part of that is Colin Trevorrow not knowing how to properly make a movie. Thank goodness he was kicked off of Star Wars. I firmly believe, because Kathleen Kennedy is an executive producer on the Jurassic movies as well, I firmly believe that the conversation went down like this. She was like, look, Colin, we know what this is. You're not making the next Star Wars movie. This script that you guys have, this is awful. This is not the direction we want to go. We're changing course because of everything that's happened in the last couple of years with The Last Jedi and Solo. So here's what I'm gonna let you do. You can do whatever you want with that third Jurassic movie, because nobody cares at this point. It's still gonna make money, but that last one was like Fallen Kingdom stunk up the place so bad. I don't think you can do worse. And he probably said, cool, so I can just do whatever I want. And she was like, yeah, I mean, don't try and fit 4 movies worth of content into one movie. But and he was like, 4 movies worth of content into one movie, that is what I'm gonna do. And he left that meeting and got on the phone and was like, I don't know who's writing it, but whoever's writing it with him, he was like, hey, you know all those ideas we had? Put them in the movie. And the guy was like, which ones? And he's like, all of them. Just put all of them in the movie. And in the trailer, it's just like, that's what the trailer is. They're like, hey, dinosaurs in the snow. Dinosaurs in the desert. Dinosaurs in a movie theater. Dinosaurs on an airplane. I don't know. Just put dinosaurs everywhere, you guys. A big facility in the middle of the jungle where I guess they're probably gonna have a bunch of dinosaurs or something. I don't know, you guys. What dinosaurs should we put in this? Let's put all of the dinosaurs in this one. And it's just like, hey, did anybody ever think at any point, maybe we should have a story in this film? And it was like, no, because we're going to put the 3 people from the first movie in this one for the first time since the first movie. And it's like,
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
There's a quote that
You're
gets
being
used.
Pessimistic. You're being pessimistic.
There's a quote. Well, hey, look, if I set my expectations low, there's only room to go up, right? So
that's fair.
And after Fallen Kingdom, my expectations could not be lower. That movie is terrible. I've only seen it once.
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it.
But like, you know how much I care about Jurassic Park, right? Like, it's a defining movie for me. So the fact that there's one of them that I've only ever watched once and have no intention of watching again, I guess I have to watch it with Kara before we see the third one, because otherwise she won't know anything about.
Kara doesn't get freaked out by these movies. They're very scary.
No, she loves them. what did we talk about earlier? She's me. She's
I
just
know.
a smaller
You lucked
version of
out.
me.
You just lucked out with her.
Yeah, she's
great.
awesome. She's incredible. The other kid, I can take her or leave her. I
Aw.
that's so mean. No, Cassie is incredible in completely different ways because Cassie
I
has
am
one
so
of the
excited for.
best senses of humor of any person I've ever met in my life. And when she's actually smart enough to craft a joke, she's going to be very funny. Cuz right now it's like she'll just do something and you're like, you're ridiculous. I know you just did that for a laugh. But yeah, when she's actually clever enough to turn a phrase or something, she's going to be a very funny person. But
I get excited. I'm excited by the prospect of her doing field hockey. I think that'll be
I'm so terrified that I'm going to have to watch soccer. Oh my god.
She's going to be so good at it. Oh, she's going to be so good at it.
Probably.
She's
But
going to like
anyways,
dominate the field.
I just like there's a reason why all three of them have not been in a single Jurassic movie since the first one. And it's because there is no context, there is no story that makes sense for the three of them to be together on screen again, running around being chased by dinosaurs. I am very curious to see what Colin Trevorrow thinks that is, because clearly he thinks he figured it out. And if he did, I'm going to be very surprised and I'll eat my words. I will gladly eat my Dr. Grant hat on this one because great. Then that means that the movie isn't an absolute dumpster fire. But what I said on Twitter still holds true. There is no way that there are way too many cool things in that trailer for the movie to be any good. It is Independence Day with dinosaurs. They should just like Roland Emmerich should get a directing credit. I don't care who actually directed this movie because it just looks like one of his pieces of garbage. That being said, you guys know how we feel about Independence Day. But every movie that he's done since then trying to do Independence Day again, it's like, come on, knock it off. Like Independence Day to the day after tomorrow. Is the day after tomorrow one of his? I don't know.
Sorry.
It's what 2012 I think it was one of his. Moonfall is the one that's coming out. Or maybe it already came out and nobody noticed because it's a piece of garbage about the moon's not actually the moon, it's actually an alien thing, and they're gonna shoot all of their rocks at the earth.
Gosh.
And it's like that's some of that is a cool idea. Unfortunately, it's actually the season finale of Beast Wars, the Transformers cartoon show from the 90s. So I think that they did it better.
They definitely did an episode of Doctor Who where the moon was an alien, so
like Hollow Moon theory and like there being like aliens inside the moon is like a common thing, right? This is not a new idea, but just like Moonfall does not look good.
A giant egg.
It was a giant egg, okay.
And it cracked open and a beast was born from it. Yes.
Fantastic.
I haven't watched Doctor Who in a very long time.
There's probably a reason for that. Jurassic World Dominion looks like, I mean, that trailer is fantastic. The trailer is phenomenal, but the trailer for the first one was really great. The trailers for Fallen Kingdom were really great, and then they just don't hold up. The Jurassic World is the best of those two, and will be the best of the three when this one comes out for sure. Like I'm very confident in making that assertion without having seen this movie. That doesn't mean that it's good though. Like it is like there's a lot about Jurassic World. It's very hard to watch. It's like, you know what? Jurassic World came out in 2015, the same year that The Force Awakens came out. And when I watch Jurassic World, I have like cringe moments like I do from movies from like the early 2000s. Where it's like, oh, we have a strong female character in this one. See, she's running around doing all of this in heels. Like they thought that was
worst.
They thought that was a feminist statement, and it was like, yeah, maybe when Buffy was still on the air, but like not now, not in 2015, right? Like
terrible.
Yeah, because
that's the worst part of that movie. It's like it makes it the worst. Like it's just.
And I remember when they were promoting it, and Bryce Dallas Howard was like, it was like the I think is it Ginger Rogers, like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, that like her quote was like, I do everything he does but backwards and in heels, right? And
Oh, right, yeah, yeah,
she
yeah.
like
Okay.
she like referenced that like, oh, she's keeping up with Chris Pratt with the Owen Grady character, even though like, you know, she's in here like it was some kind of a statement, right? And it was like, but now I watch that movie and it's just like, I mean, like logistically, it just doesn't make sense. She can't run in mud with those shoes. That doesn't work. I don't care. I don't care how feminist you are. You can't defy the laws of physics. You can't run away from a dinosaur in heels on mud. It's not going to work. But anyways, we don't need to litigate Jurassic World. I think that everybody is in agreement that it is not as good as the other Jurassic Park movies. It takes a lot for people to be like, The Lost World and Jurassic Park are better than that. I personally think that those two movies are great movies. They're just misunderstood. But a lot of people hold the opinion that they're bad movies, the wrong opinion. But then you'll say like, yeah, but what about Jurassic World? And they'll be like, yeah, well, you know, they're better than that. Right. Yeah, there's no way that this is a cohesive, thoughtful, sci-fi movie that like posits any questions worth asking. It's there's going to be a really heavy-handed climate catastrophe analogy. That's all. It's in the trailer, so it's like, hey, good job, guys. You already fired that salvo. So it's not going to do anything for me in the movie because you've already told me that like Laura Dern's character is there to be like, we created a climate catastrophe, right? Or an environmental catastrophe, and then it's like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of bugs or something, right? Like it's like, oh, dinosaurs have thrown the whole world out of equilibrium. Well, yeah, no duh, right? Like so like I said, like it's a very heavy-handed allegory for climate change, right? It's like, oh, our hubris as human beings has, it's like, yeah, so make a movie about that, or make a movie about dinosaurs. Don't try and pretend that has anything to do, like that's why you made this movie, to tell this story. You're telling this story because of the big dollar signs in your eyes every time somebody says the word Jurassic attached to these characters, right? I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting because Chris Pratt, when they cast him in the first one, was like the guy. And I think that the shine is off that apple. And it's going to be really interesting to see with this and with Guardians Volume 3, like, is he still a box office draw? Does anybody care? Because he's made some pretty bad movies. And beyond that, he's done some things that are questionable and said some things that are questionable. And, you know, he's lost a lot of esteem in a lot of people's eyes, I think. So, yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that a movie with him headlining it would be as successful as if they were just like Jeff Goldblum, Sam Neill, and Laura Dern. Like, forget about the other characters; they don't matter. These are the leads of this movie, and Chris Pratt dies in the first 15 minutes, right? Like, we're making a statement, right? And it's like, and we get rid of him and we bring back the originals or something like that. It's like, I think that movie would make more money than the movie where they put Chris Pratt on a motorcycle for 45% of it in Rome or something. I don't know. He's like in some European city and there's dinosaurs there too. The whole thing is just
dinosaurs everywhere.
How they're going to explain that like 20 dinosaurs escaped from a mansion in the middle of the States, and now there are dinosaurs all over the world, including ones that didn't exist in Jurassic World, that like weren't part of the theme park. And I like there are ways to explain that. And if you've watched Camp Cretaceous, the TV series, which I have, because Cara and I have watched the whole thing, they get into it a little bit, that there are these other companies engineering their own dinosaurs trying to compete with InGen, right? The company that you know owns Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, whatever. So there are these other companies making dinosaurs, and it's just like, we're gonna have to sit through 45 minutes of very bad exposition from BD Wong for this to make any sense, and it's not gonna be worth it. Like it would be better if you were just like, and then all of a sudden dinosaurs started stepping out of magic portals. It's like, okay, cool, that only took 3 seconds to explain. It's just as dumb an explanation as, and then corporations were like, we can make dinosaurs, so we will. And then we're just gonna unleash them on Rome for some reason. And it's like cool. Bigger velociraptors. They're not velociraptors. They're atrociraptors or something like that, which is like a real thing. But like, I think they're a real thing. I don't know. At this point, like the Jurassic franchise has gone so far off the rails with like, I made up this dinosaur, I made up this dinosaur, I made up this and this and this, that it's like, okay, so I'm assuming that this thing that you've just sent me, Amanda, is germane to the conversation that we're presently having.
It is 100%. It's like a meme where they found first ever DNA recovered from extinct miniature elephants of Sicily. It's like an article, and then the comment is like Jurassic Park, but it's tiny elephants and nothing goes wrong. And then the next person's like, same score, but played entirely on kazoos. And then the final comment is, instead of Chris Pratt, it's Jack Black. And I'm just like, yep.
Look, fund it. Green lit now. Make it. Do it. Do it. Oh my God. Just like, yeah, miniature elephant. Look, if we could, oh my God, if we could genetically re-engineer miniature elephants, who wouldn't want one? Right? It's like people keep pot-bellied pigs as pets, right? Can I get a miniature elephant? 100% I'm gonna do it. No, I'm not. But pets are so much work. But I am a cat person because they require the least amount of effort. But I will definitely go to a petting zoo.
The most high maintenance cat in the world. Your cat is so
well, he's from your perspective, he's mostly fine.
Yes. That's fair.
But anyways. Yeah, Jack Black and a bunch of miniature elephants sounds like a fantastic movie to me. But really, I mean, like, anytime you say Jack Black, I'm like, you've got my interest. I will watch Jack Black in almost anything.
That's fair. Oh, you know what I watched? It's not Jack Black, but I watched Marry Me, the movie, the Jennifer Lopez rom-com with Owen Wilson.
Congratulations. I'm happy for you.
I know that we
get it over with. Be quick. Say what you want to say about it.
I just think that if you want exactly what is advertised in the trailer, you're gonna have a good time, and it was just enjoyable. And I have seen points up the wazoo. I've wazoo seen points because I haven't been able to go to the movies in forever. And it's like, instead of being a grown-up that has a credit card that gives me like travel points, I have a credit card that gives me movie points, so I get like free movies. So I just like, what a great use of movie points for me. So I don't know, it's fun. Fantastic. I don't know, I like Jennifer Lopez rom-com. Come on.
You know, Jennifer Lopez has just never been my cup of tea. She
does rom-coms so well though. Like, she has some real good rom-coms.
I don't disagree with you, but it's just like none of them have ever been to my taste.
Not your jam.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I'm not judging anybody who likes Jennifer Lopez. It's just not for me.
The thing is, Owen Wilson is like that for me. He's not my jam. He sort of like rankles me, but he was okay. I like
it. Because you're talking about the least offensive form of Owen Wilson from your perspective, right? Because he's gonna in a movie like that, he's very toned down and just like a normal guy.
He's not annoying as heck. But I mean, I will say, like, I mean, him and Loki is awesome. So, but his daughter is biracial in the movie, and you never meet the mom. She's just like his ex, and like she comes and picks the daughter up one day at school, but she doesn't speak, and it's just like a really cool, refreshing take on like exes. Like, it's never a problem that he has this like ex-wife, and she's not actually like part of the story. I don't know, it was an interesting way to handle like divorce and like I don't like because and I see that meme all the time because I never watched it, but it's like it's some sort of thing where like there's like a Dr. Duvenschnorf or something that he's like a villain of some kind and has like a kid, and it's a cartoon of some kind. But anyways, apparently in the cartoon he does all these ridiculous things, but never once does he like try to get back at his ex-wife or anything. She just like exists.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's like a healthy for like the trends in media to lean more towards families just looking all kinds, and sometimes, you know, parents just aren't together and it's just a thing that exists. Oh, I don't know. It's cute. Watch it. Also, I think his name is Utkarsh Ambakar or whatever his name is. I like he's Utkarsh. Anyways, he's in Ghost, like the new like CBS show or whatever, and he's just like in it like for the last little bit, and it was super unexpected, and he's so weird, and it just like added the like I don't know, I just like really like seeing him and stuff every now and then, and so it was they had good cameos for like secondary people that are usually in rom-coms. So he's like what's his face is like Bumper's buddy in Pitch Perfect. I don't know, I'm referencing rom-coms that you probably have you seen Pitch Perfect? It's worth watching.
No, you know, anytime somebody says, what's the thing that it's like Aka something or other, and like,
yeah.
anytime anybody says that, it just upsets me. Like it makes me mad, and I'm like, so this is like they say that a bunch in the movie, like enough that it's like a thing that people say to like reference the movie, and I'm just like, yeah, so this is just like Glee on steroids, right? That's what it is. I have no interest. I have zero interest.
That's
I feel like I would just sit there with clenched fists the whole time going like, what's happening? Why would you make me watch Anna Kendrick do this? Like, because I don't want to hate Anna Kendrick. That's the thing. So that I want to love Anna Kendrick because I do. So like, don't make me watch a movie where I have to hate her. And then also,
so we've been,
you know, yeah. Anyway,
we talked about like so because Bryce Dallas Howard is connected to both Jurassic Park and Star Wars franchises.
Yeah.
And she is one person that when I was first introduced to her, she rubbed me the wrong way because she was, again, speaking of Anna Kendrick and like First Degrees of Separation or whatever, she took over for one of the characters on Twilight, like one of the actors, and like replaced the actor that was doing the role. And I just always like was really sad that actor didn't get to do the movie that was like featuring her. Like it was like in the third movie, Bryce Dallas Howard plays a character that had already existed in the franchise and was cast as somebody else. Anyways, I just got like sad. So Bryce Dallas Howard in my brain took another actor's role. Makes me sad. Anyways, yeah, Anna Kendrick's rad. That's it. I don't need to talk about rom-coms anymore. I just wanted to say that I feel like it's a been good time. I don't know.
Were you trying to do like a pun?
Maybe
headline
like a
rom.
Well, yeah, something like that. I'm getting
here's my here without having seen the movie, here's my headline to catch attention. Marry me, more like bury me. What a snooze fest is that's the subline. It's like, what a snooze fest. Yeah, that's my you crack open the Georgia Strait to see what movies you're gonna go see because the internet barely exists and you gotta look at movie showtimes on a piece of paper. And that's right next to it. Yeah. Just dating ourselves. Wow. Thankfully nobody under the age of 30 is listening to this podcast. I guarantee it. There's no way that we have Gen Z listeners. I like prove it. Prove it, because the only people who ever send me messages on social media are definitely in their mid to late 30s. Like, come on. That's our audience.
A niche market. We're a niche market, Mike,
hey,
and it just helps that everybody understands what we're talking about.
We have an audience. We went from an audience of like 10,000 people with Quiver talking about a show that was terrible that we hated to an audience of like maybe 200 people on a good day. But only ever talking about stuff that matters to us, right? So like, I'll take it any day of the week. This is so much more enjoyable than having to sit through Arrow. Speaking of broody television antiheroes, Moon Knight
Okay.
got another trailer, and I don't have
Did you watch
anything to
it?
say other than Oscar Isaac is my favorite person, and I think that I'm gonna love this show just by virtue of the fact that it's 6 hours of him, which I think I
Yeah.
already spent 45 minutes a couple weeks ago explaining why that is, so you guys know how I feel about it. That said, like, the trailer just does legit make me go like, this is going to be something different. Like, we are
Oh yeah.
buckling up. The next few months of Marvel content are going to take us to places we ain't never been before with Marvel, and I think that's really, really exciting, because the last year of Marvel content took us to a bunch of places that we've never been before and broke boundaries and was like, hey, here's that thing that you love, but also, like, let's go crazy with it. Like, when you talk about WandaVision, Loki, Far From Home, No Way Home, right? Like we've
Yeah.
gotten some pretty bananas stuff in the last just over 12 months, like 13 months. Um, Moon Knight looks like it's going in a very, like, brutal, intense direction that other Marvel stuff hasn't gone yet, which I'm really excited for. Um, it's kind of got a little bit of that Daredevil, like the Netflix sort of
It's
vibe to
just
it.
dark. Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
darkest thing I
which
think that
which
they've
I'm
done
excited
so.
for, because, like,
Yeah.
I'm ready for Marvel to tell some stories like that again, and for it to actually be part of the MCU this time. Like, let's build out that universe. I think more and more, I think it's entirely possible that we're gonna get Kit Harington making an appearance at some point on this show, because Moon Knight, I think, is gonna live in that world with
Oh
Blade
yeah.
and the Black Knight. Like, I
That makes sense.
like setting up like a very different version of the Defenders or something like that. I don't know. There are different superhero teams that they could all be, but yeah, like this idea of, like, putting together um this supernatural anti-hero team could be really, really cool. So, like, if the last episode has Kit Harington show up and he's got the sword, and maybe Mahershala Ali steps out of the shadows and we actually get to see Blade this time. Um,
Nice.
could be very cool. Could be very, very cool, and would be at home in the world that it feels like they're setting up for Moon Knight. So, super excited about that. Now let's get into, like, the real one, Doctor Strange in the
Ray, we have
Multiverse of
so many
Madness.
things to talk about today.
Oh my
So many
god,
trailers. Yeah.
this
Yeah, yeah,
trailer!
yeah.
I'm
It's
playing it right
epic.
now. And
Okay.
it's like, it starts and it's like, oh, okay, cool. They're just gonna show us more of what they showed us in like the No Way Home post credit scene. It's like,
Yeah.
cool, okay, we see a little bit more of America Chavez. I will see a little bit more of, like, this multiverse stuff, and, like, oh, Stephen Strange, you broke the multiverse and now you got to pay the piper. And Mordo is like, there are consequences to your actions, Stephen. And it's like, okay, this is all stuff that we were expecting, right?
Yeah.
And, like, cool, awesome, it looks great. I'm totally down for a dark, mysterious Doctor Strange movie. Like, let's go, because I love Doctor Strange. But then we get to the point where because they show us Wanda and everything again, but then we get to the stuff with Mordo, where he's talking about the consequences, and then we start seeing the he get, like, the shackles, like the handcuffs that are
Oh
on
yeah, yeah,
Doctor
yeah.
Strange, and you're like, those aren't quite, those aren't mystical, those are technological. And then they walk around a
Yeah.
corner and there's a bunch of robots with lights in the center of their chest, and then we hear Patrick Stewart talking to other people about Doctor Strange. And I think what he says is something like, maybe we should just tell him the truth, or something like that. Um, and then there's just so many things in the rest of this trailer that it's like, is that possibly Iron Man? Is it Captain Marvel? Is that this character, that character? So, I it is entirely likely that this is going to be our first moment in the MCU. I mean, like, I think it's basically a lock. You hear Patrick Stewart and you see a guy with a bald head from behind. Professor Xavier is in Charles Xavier is in this movie, which means that a mutant, not an enhanced, not an Infinity Stone powered take on a mutant, but like a legit X-Men character is going to show up in the MCU in this movie. I think that that's pretty. I think that's a lock at this point, right? Like, would you say that that's? I think we're there.
So I only watched it once and didn't pay attention to as many things as you were. So I'll watch it again.
Did you not clock that that's Professor X? Okay,
I didn't.
So here's the additional information that a comic book fan has that a casual MCU fan doesn't have.
Okay.
There is a group of characters from across the Marvel universe in the comics. They sort of pull strings and control things from the shadows, and it was like a major revelation that these, I think it's 6 of them. I'd have to count them on my fingers in order to know, because I'm dumb. Hey, by the way, I didn't say it at the beginning of this because we talked about it in the post thing. Like, I had COVID, and brain fog is a real thing. It's a thing that happens with COVID, and it's like hard to put words together. But anyways, yeah, there are 6 of them, and doing things like math in my head is really hard right now. But it's going away. In any case, the original Illuminati in the Marvel comics was 6. It's 6 white guys, which is a real problem, and I'm hoping that they course correct this in the MCU. But in their original incarnation, and the roster has changed over time, they've been disbanded and then come back together and blah blah blah. This is the Illuminati. You can't get rid of them. Obviously, Professor X is one of them. These are the most brilliant minds in the Marvel Comics universe. So Professor X, Namor, the Submariner, Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, Black Bolt, who's the leader of the Inhumans, and Tony Stark.
Wow. Okay.
And obviously Tony Stark is dead. This is a thing that every time I say it, it is very upsetting for me to say. Yeah. And the potential that we could see Tony Stark again. Now, like, that could mean a whole bunch of different things. It could mean Robert Downey Jr. Maybe he's back. Maybe he's got a cameo. I don't know. It could mean that they're going to recast Iron Man, because go watch Loki. Loki can be a woman with a different name and still be Loki. Or an alligator. So Tony Stark from somewhere outside of the MC, like in somewhere in the multiverse, can be played by, and Matt Campbell brought this up with me. He sent me the Photoshop of it. It could be Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise was originally supposed to play Iron Man. That was supposed to be the thing, and maybe they're gonna do it now. And that thing that guy that's all blue and he's got some stuff, and maybe in one shot it's Captain Marvel, maybe in another shot it's Superior Iron Man, who is like a sort of an evil take on Iron Man, right? Like, I don't know. Those robots look an awful lot like real upgraded Ultrons, right? Like as if Tony didn't botch it and actually the Ultron program actually worked. So that scene of like that voice, Patrick Stewart seeing a bald guy from behind, all of those chairs, it is very clear to me that Stephen Strange has broken the multiverse by what the Avengers did, or at least they think that Stephen Strange has broken the multiverse by virtue of what he did. We know from Loki that that's actually probably not the case, that because what the TVA says when Loki's like, what about the Avengers? And it's like, yeah, but they were supposed to do that. Like that was part of the sacred timeline. And it's like, but then Loki and Sylvie break the sacred timeline, right? So maybe it's actually them, and that's what, like, by the end of this movie, Strange is going to find out that it was actually Loki and Sylvie that did it. And that'll be sort of the consequences of that, because we do see Doctor Strange at the He Who Remains, in his little chamber.
Oh yeah,
right, there's the one
yeah,
shot of him there. So Loki, it's gonna be brought up, it's part of the story, right? But Spider-Man is probably also part of the story, and as well as what happened in Endgame, right, with the time travel stuff. So yeah,
so many things.
and not to mention like all of this stuff with Wanda and WandaVision all coming back into play in this, and yeah, like what that's going to do for her character. Yeah, and I love that moment where she's like, like, you do this and everybody calls you a hero, I do the same thing, and like, I'm a villain or whatever she says, and it's like, dude, that doesn't seem
Right,
very
yeah,
fair.
yeah.
So it's like, so we're
Yeah.
gonna talk about it, like, we're gonna get into it, it's gonna be a major part of the story. Yeah, this trailer just looks like it's everything that the Jurassic World Dominion trailer is, but the MCU has so much goodwill stored up that even after Eternals, it's like, hey, we're gonna put all of this in one movie, and I'm like, yep. Especially coming off of No Way Home, where they're like, hey, do you guys think we can do this? And I'm still scared to spoil No Way Home, because some people, because they can't get to theaters, haven't seen it. But like, what they do in Spider-Man No Way Home, it's like, it seems like it was a dare, but a dare that somehow managed to work out in everybody's favor and ends up being one of the best movies in the MCU. It's like, hey, do you think you guys can do this with one of your movies? And Kevin Feige was like, yeah, totally. And then somebody was like, yeah, but you got to let Sony do it. And then they were like, fine, let them do it. And somehow it worked. Somehow they pulled it off, and it wasn't terrible. When by all accounts, if like on paper, if you pitched that movie 10 years ago, people would be like, what? No, you can't do that. Audiences are not gonna. No, actually, it's made more money than any other Marvel movie. So, actually, you can, you can, and they did, and they will again. So I think Doctor Strange is like, yeah, even with Sam Raimi directing it, I still have faith. I still have faith. This trailer is amazing and looks incredible, and I don't
I'm sorry,
know.
Sam Raimi's directing Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah, it was
Really?
originally supposed to be Scott Derrickson who directed the first one, but
Oh.
but he left. He parted ways with Marvel for creative differences. I think that because Scott Derrickson does a lot of horror stuff, and early on they were billing this as like, no, this one's like straight up horror. Like, this is a different thing. And I think that at some point, Multiverse of Madness went from a personal um Stephen Strange being put through the ringer and paying the price for the things that he did in Endgame into hey, we need to set the stage for the next 5 years, and we're going to use this movie to do it. And I think that the
Right.
conversation was probably like Scott Derrickson going, no, I have a story that I want to tell with this character, and Kevin Feige going, yeah, but the bigger picture, and him going like, cool, like, I like, good, I wish you guys the best. It's not for me though.
Right.
Like, and like in a very like genuine, because they seem to have parted on good terms. He doesn't seem particularly upset. I think it's in a way where like Scott Derrickson could come back and do the third Doctor Strange movie if things worked out, right? Like, if they wanted to go in that direction. But I think like he wanted to make like one of his horror movies, but in the MCU with Doctor Strange. And I think that they were like, no, we got to use this to launch 6 other movies. So it was like, cool. We want different things from this relationship. I'm going to go. And they were like, cool, we'll get Sam Raimi to do it. He could use the money. And Sam Raimi was like, yeah. but can I put somebody in this movie that's basically me? And they were like, no, we'll see. And so far it looks like they haven't. I don't know. That's a common thing with Sam Raimi's films. He's like, or not just films, things that he produces and directs. He's like, can I put my brother in it? And he can I can embarrass him while also making him a cool character.
Wait, who's his brother?
I don't know. It's something Raimi.
Ted Raimi? Ivan?
I think it's Ted. Yeah. If you ever did you ever watch like Hercules or Xena? Any of that stuff?
Yeah.
He's a character in Xena, and he's like he's like a silly character, and I think that he's in that because of his brother.
He's in the Spider-Man trilogy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's this guy. Yeah.
But I mean, like the Spider-Man trilogy, that his brother isn't the Sam Raimi stand-in. Tobey Maguire is the Sam Raimi stand-in. Like right. the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are not like, hey, these are movies about Peter Parker. It's like those movies are like, hey, what if Sam Raimi was Peter Parker? And it's like that, and that's why Peter Parker is such a pathetic, sad character. Because it's Sam Raimi being like, this is what I was like as a teenager. And it's like, that's not really the character.
Was he in Xena and that stuff independently, or is that connected to Sam Raimi also?
It's connected to Sam Raimi, because I'm pretty sure that Sam Raimi, because the Xena stuff comes out of the Hercules stuff, and I think Sam Raimi might have either produced or maybe even directed some of the Hercules. Because you remember those Hercules, like the Kevin Sorbo, who's
I never knew which one came first. I always thought Xena came first.
No, so they did TV movies first. Before there was a Hercules series, and then Xena spun out of that world that they created, that like Greek mythology world, and then eventually they also did the young Hercules stuff with Ryan Gosling, which
that's just classic.
So
classic
good.
Fare.
Hey, this is Corinthian leather, right?
Yeah. Sam Raimi was a producer on
they drove that joke into the ground. It was like, oh, he's rich. And the side character, right? His rival or whatever in it. It was always like, this is rich Corinthian leather. Every episode that guy had to mention how his outfit was made out of Corinthian leather, as if that meant anything to us kids.
Man, like, I haven't seen young Hercules in like 20 years. So exciting. Maybe
there's a reason for that, right?
Shows like this back. No, but like, come on. They've licensed so many things on streaming platforms. How come I can't watch Breaker High Student Bodies or Young Hercules?
You know what? Like, yeah. Look. Well, Student Bodies is a whole thing, because the people who made Student Bodies, both the cast and the creators, they've talked about that a lot. It's just like nobody owns it. No, like the rights. The rights are with like some some company, like the company that made the show went bankrupt, and some company bought the IP and put it into like some holding company, and then that company went out of business, and some other company has it, and now like it's all just sitting in a warehouse that Viacom owns or something, right? And nobody at whatever company owns it, nobody at that company made the decision to purchase Student Bodies, so they don't even know that they have it, and they don't care that anybody wants it, right? It is one of those things where like, is there some way that we could like crowdsource this? Could we kickstart buying the rights to Student Bodies so that we could put it on Netflix? Because it's I mean, like, I don't know what those actors have gone on to do, but like hopefully the guy who played the lead in Student Bodies isn't like a, you know, conservative mouthpiece or something like that now, because you turn over a rock these days and it's like, oh, that star from 1990 is like, he's a neo-Nazi now or something. Because hey, by the way, if you're aligning yourself with a lot of right-wing propaganda at the moment, you're hanging out with Nazis. So, you know, if you hang out with Nazis, you're a Nazi. That's the way that works. I didn't make that rule. That's not my rule. That's like a rule of the universe, right? I used the analogy on, I think, our last episode. You poop in the pool. Now the pool, the whole pool is dirty now. The whole pool. You got poop on you if you were in that pool. Get out, wash yourself off. If you choose not to and you stay in the pool with the poop, then I can only assume you like poop. Right? So if you're hanging out with Nazis, I can only assume you agree with them and you think that they're pretty cool. And so, and
So I will
unfortunately
say,
there have been a lot of people like
maybe
Hercules, Kevin Sorbo, who's like, I don't know, I think they've got a point. And you're like, no, they think they have a point, and their point is very clear. It relies on people with the last name Cohen dying. So I don't agree with their point. We're not saying they don't have a point. We're just saying that the point that they're making is not a good one, and we don't agree with that point. That's what we're saying, Kevin Sorbo.
So here's I will say, Jamie Ullman, who is one of the stars of Student Bodies, is decidedly Jewish. So much so that he made a web series or something called Yid Life Crisis or something. I don't know. Happy to say, not a Nazi. So
we can pretty
say
definitively say
that he is probably not a Nazi. So there's one down. Hopefully I'll go through. There's actually some of these people from Student Bodies. I'm like, I vaguely recognize you as a Canadian actor. That would be another thing.
I want to reboot this show. Amanda, you're a producer. Can we figure this out? Can we figure this out?
You know what you just said in my brain, where you're like, hey, could we just crowdsource I'm just literally gonna go find out how much it would cost to get the rights to Student Bodies. I
know I've never written anything before. Like just the garbage that I wrote when I was in film school, right? That is not good. That even at the time I recognized this is not what I'm here for. I have other skills, and that's why I ended up going into graphic design, and I'm very happy with where I am with my career. That said, do you not think that I could write a really good pilot episode of a Student Bodies reboot? We've talked about Student Bodies enough that that I have a pretty deep knowledge of that show, right? I think I could do it. And I don't know that I have the energy or the will to do it, but I think that I have the talent to do it.
But here's the thing too, is that these actors, we could get these actors.
Oh, they're gettable. They're gettable actors. That's
gettable.
The thing. That's the thing.
So you
can
put them as the teachers and make it. I mean, I don't know.
You have and you must have connections with chorus, right? Like there's no way that you don't.
Well, not me personally.
Come on, you've been in the room with people before.
I feel like I could go. Yeah, but I mean, not to call them up and be like, by the way, let's reboot Student Bodies. Anyways.
This is one of those things where it's like the How I Met Your Mother episode where they're like, we should totally buy a bar. This is one of those things where it's like, we could totally do this, you guys.
But this is the thing too with it, is that there are animated parts to Student Bodies, right? It's cartoon segments, and I happen to be in the animation industry.
Mainframe, let's do it,
Michael. I'm excited.
And what an angle! What an angle on the reboot that the new kid that's the lead, that he makes webtoons or something like that. He makes computer animated stuff, because that's what a kid today would do, right? They would or flash assisted, computer assisted type 2D stuff, right? They wouldn't do hand drawn comics. They would have this other thing, or maybe making a video game or something like that, right? Like something that revolves in more the 3D realm. And there it is. I think that we could put a pitch together. I think that I could write one episode.
Somebody has to be pitching this somewhere.
That could be pretty good.
Just not exist.
But we need to pitch it, Amanda. You and I need to pitch it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And also, I'm pretty sure 20th Century Fox owns this, and they're not going to sell us the rights. But
there's no way. Well, if 20th Century has it, then Disney has it, and Disney will make anything now because they've got Disney Plus.
We've talked about this before. That they actually. I went to a Disney Plus thing recently because I was at the CMPA primetime television producers conference, and the Disney Plus guy for Canada was very shockingly yeah, we're looking to make anything, not just kids content, because we got a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Hey, okay, this is my new thing. I'm going to go pitch Student Bodies to Disney Plus and be like, you already own this content. Can I make it for you?
There's no way, Amanda. There's no way that we don't know somebody that knows Jamie Ullman. right?
But I know. Well, that of course, 100%.
There's no way.
That,
We
the
are
actors,
no less
the
than 3
actor's
degrees
not
of
a problem.
separation from him. But I feel like
Not a
if we get him on board, right? Like if I write an episode and he's the like again the lead, but like that he's like sharing, because this is the model now, right? Is that I don't we have completely jumped off the Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is going to be awesome. Who cares? They don't need our help. Student Bodies needs our help. We're the only ones who can save Student Bodies, Amanda.
Okay.
And the model is
right.
that you have the two leads, right? You have like Saved by the Bell. I haven't watched it yet, but like it's in all the trailers, right? You've got AC Slater, Mario Lopez, who is also I think he's a bit of a piece of garbage, but then he said sorry for being a piece of garbage. But it was like, did you say sorry because you were going to lose your job with Extra, or because you actually mean it?
Yes, of course.
But whatever, he said sorry, so that's better than Kevin Sorbo, right? Who like Kevin Sorbo is like, yeah, I said bad stuff. I'm gonna say more bad stuff. Here it comes. I think the Nazis are all right. I don't. That's not a direct quote, but like, he's not far.
More or less.
I think Trump's got some great ideas, only he's not going far enough. Let's get rid of all of them. All of who, Kevin Sorbo? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Kevin Sorbo is a piece of trash. It's really unfortunate because I love that Hercules stuff. But it's okay because Ryan Gosling is our real Hercules, right? I think we can all agree.
That is 100%. I'm on board with that.
But the model is that you have the AC Slater, and then you also have the young kid, and you're telling both stories simultaneously. Where it's like it's about AC Slater coming back to Bayside because his life has gone horribly wrong, and now he's the only thing he can do is be the PE teacher at Bayside. So now he's one of the zany teachers because all the teachers in Saved by the Bell. Crystal and I are watching through Saved by the Bell right now. Fantastic. So good. So I mean, like, everybody's like, oh, Saved by the Bell, it's good for what it is. And like, no, Saved by the Bell has some top tier comedy writing. Fantastic, phenomenal writing. It is what it is. It's a Saturday morning cartoon show with live action people about kids in a high school, but it's very, very good writing. There are very funny jokes in it. But we do that, right? Like, where you've got, like, you bring back Jamie Ellman, and he's like teaching the art class at the school, right? Like, now he's a teacher, and that's what he does. And he had a career, whatever, but he's like, whatever. It's and we can make some statements about the animation industry, right? And about how it burns people out, and then they just end up being teachers. There's something to say there. We've got some actual, like, meat on the bones with that. But don't worry, we're not going to go too hard because obviously the animation industry is also making this show, so we got to ride that line, but it's okay. We can do that.
Tread carefully. Yes.
And then there's the new kid, like the young kid, the teenager that we're going to bring in. Not a freshman because that's too young, right? So they got to be sophomore, right? In high school. And get this, here's the twist, Amanda. It's a girl.
Whoa.
That's half a joke because I think now that's been done so many times of like, the lead of the original one was a guy. This one's a girl. I don't think we do that. But I think we have a cool opportunity on a project. It
hasn't been done enough that it's passé. I feel like you could still do it and it'd be okay.
I think it's been done enough that it's pandering. Not that it's passé, but that it feels like pandering. Like, hey, inclusivity, it's a person of color and they're a girl, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of like, that's how we're going to reboot it. That's not to say that that's not the path, but this is a workshop right now. We're not making decisions.
Come for the podcast where we discuss our television ideas.
This is gonna be so good because I'm gonna title this episode "We Pitch a Student Bodies Reboot," and people are gonna be like, "What is Student Bodies?" Because, like, let's be real, it doesn't mean as much to anybody outside of Canada as it does to us. Like, yeah. But so here's the thing, and I'm serious on this one. We have an opportunity. Okay. And obviously, if we made the show, we would bring in a writer's room to address all of this, and it wouldn't just be a mostly straight cisgendered white guy writing these perspectives and pretending like he knows anything about this. But we'd have an opportunity to make a group of high schoolers that look like actual high schoolers today, and have like like a trans kid or non-binary, or like, you know, like to not to like check things off, but to just be like, hey, like we could actually tell these stories with these characters, right? Because Student Bodies was really cool in the way that it actually did. It took like the Saved by the Bell model very much. Like it's totally
Or
inspired
the
by that.
Degrassi High
Or
model? I don't
Degrassi,
know. I
right?
feel
Well,
like
it's kind I feel like Student Bodies sat right in the middle of those two, right? Because
it
Degrassi
did.
was always too soap opera, right? And
Yeah.
then Saved by the
Yeah.
Bell was too inconsequential, right? Like every episode we're gonna end back at the status quo like a sitcom, right? And Student
Yeah.
Bodies in the first season was a little bit more like Saved by the Bell, but then in the second season they were like, let's tell some real stories with these characters. And they went to places and they were like, let's talk to teenagers about actual teenage issues and like sex and all of that stuff. Like that's what made the show good, right? Like it wasn't that every 30 seconds they had a bad cartoon in the middle of it where you're like, there's nothing funny about the guy, he sneezes and then the whole school explodes with boogers. That's not funny. Nobody watching the show was like, this is what I'm here for, right? But it was like, I think the thing that made Student Bodies important to us at the age that we were is that the show was like, hey, this is stuff that you guys are actually dealing with, right? And like it actually went there. So I don't know. I think that there's a real opportunity on this one. Saved by the Bell is actually very successful. So right now is the right time to pitch this. So
I have to say, somebody's got to be pitching it already, and if they're not, then you are right. We are at it. I also want everybody to like be really clear. We're not talking about the slasher like film from the 1980s. So because I think there's a slasher film called Student Bodies.
There is,
but it's not. And everybody, come on. It's like I don't even know what the theme song is, but you got to know the like Student Bodies.
Yeah.
Like it just has this like weird the theme song. I want to just license the theme song and put it in our podcast. I feel like if nothing else. Who did this theme song for Student Bodies? This is making me happy to like explore all these random things.
I think we scrap the Thunderquack podcast, and every 2 weeks you and I just keep workshopping this, and we just keep going.
I love it.
And that's the podcast now. Sorry guys. That's it.
Sorry all.
This is I didn't know going into the 80th episode of the Thunderquack podcast that it was going to be our last one, but you know what? This is the hand we've been dealt. We have an opportunity to reboot Student Bodies, and it's right in front of us, and we would be idiots not to take it. I'm going to forget that we ever had this conversation within 2 days.
Of course. That's how it works. But I love the idea of you and I taking half of each podcast to pitch a different reboot of a 90s Canadian television show that nobody has heard of. Anyways, it's going to be a thing for me to try to track this down. Like I'm like I feel like
Go ahead.
I feel like what has happened is that 20th Century Fox or like 20th Century, like you're right, it's that a Canadian was one of the producers and there was a company and that person has a past. And I think they probably had some rights to something still. And now there was also an American company that was an international distributor. And then that company folded. And then it got like looped into 20th Century. And then when that dissolved, it became like 20th Century, and it's just I think stuck between a whole bunch of stuff. I'm very excited. It's like a nice mystery for me to try to figure out who
it's in
actually has the rights to this property. So
the theme song was written by Judith Henderson, by the way.
I don't know who Judith Henderson is.
I don't know, but Judith Henderson wrote the theme song for Student Bodies. Okay. And also I don't know, it looks like Judith Henderson may have also composed the score for Are You Afraid of the Dark, which has already been rebooted, so we can't pitch that one. But here's the pitch for the next episode, and if we remember, we should totally spend 20 minutes talking about this at the end of the next episode and keep this going.
Okay.
Here's just the taste of what the next one is, and then we're gonna wrap up the episode. Breaker High. But it takes place in 2020. So the first episode is in like January of 2020, and everybody's like
Oh
getting
no.
ready to get on the boat. And then COVID happened, and it's because they're like, oh, it's gonna be like spring break is when
Yeah.
or it's like the summer or whatever, right? So it's like, so everybody like meets in person in like January beforehand, and it's like, oh, it's the summer's gonna be great aboard this ship. This is gonna be fantastic, and we're gonna learn so much and see so many things, and this is gonna be the most amazing experience of our lives. And then COVID happens, and then the rest of the series, and this is where it costs nothing to make, happens over Zoom.
I knew that was the punchline, and I was so excited for it. Yes, I love it. I'm here for this idea.
Because it's like, because the whole thing about the First Breaker High is like, oh, they're on a boat, they go to Rome, they go to this place, they go to Egypt, and it's like, that this doesn't make sense. This cruise is so expensive.
Yeah.
This semester at sea is like, they're not at sea, they're traveling the whole world. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But their semester at sea gets canceled, but they still need their credits for college or whatever. So they all have to
just like have Zoom like virtual tours.
So they all have to like,
Rome.
they gotta like Zoom with a guy in Rome, and he's like, yeah, this is Rome. I can't take you anywhere. Lockdown is serious in this country. And you've got like one character, and he's got a MAGA hat on, and he's like some like teenage, like the obnoxious kid in Knives Out, right? Like that he's like the 15-year-old who thinks that he's a conservative, that he's part of the young Republicans or whatever, right?
Yeah.
COVID's a hoax, right? And it's like, and yeah, I again, another great show. We're gonna explore, we'll get deeper into that one. I think that we can workshop both of these shows at the same time. I think it's fine. I don't think there's a lot of heavy lifting here.
You know what I could also look at is it looks like there was a French version of the show made called Vice Versa. So maybe there's like ways to like option like parts of it to do so. Anyways, that's cool.
If it's not called Student Bodies, I'm off the project, Amanda.
Okay.
I walk.
Okay.
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 Who's gonna write it? You? Are you gonna write it? You're not gonna write it.
I have a lot of writers that I know, though, Mike. I'm a producer. I feel like I'll be okay.
But how many of them actually drew comics in high school? Okay. Right?
I mean, that's fair.
Like, that's where
only a handful of them.
That's where I feel like I am uniquely qualified to tell. What was the lead character's name? I'm acting like I'm like this, like I'm such a Student Bodies. Like, I love the show. Like don't get me wrong. That is real.
But we don't know.
But I don't remember any of the characters' names. Cody Miller, right? Yeah. Who better to tell Cody Miller's story than like a real life Cody Miller? You know what I'm saying?
Ooh,
like
Cody's a gender neutral name too. You could totally have a
bingo. See, I like see Jamie Ellman just played Cody. I lived it, Amanda.
You are.
I lived it.
There you go.
Thinking that I could draw cartoons and that would make girls think that I was cool, and then they would want to date me, right? Like, because that's his whole thing, is that he's like, oh, check out these cartoons I'm drawing. It's like, bud, your cartoons suck. They're terrible. No one's willing to tell you. Your comics aren't funny, man. And nobody told me either. Nobody told me. Nobody was like, yeah, you kind of just draw the same thing over and over. It's not really, you're not, actually, that's not true. I did have friends who told me that, and it hurt my feelings a lot of the time. They were right, but it's I was 14. It still hurt. I remember one time, because we used to draw Dragon Ball Z characters because that was the cool thing to do when I was 14 years old. And my friend Jeremy was like, we were talking, because we all drew Dragon Ball characters, and he said, he was like, oh man, you just like you draw the clothes so well. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I think I'm pretty good at like designing costumes and stuff like that. And he's like, no, we're all good at designing costumes. I was just talking about the way that you draw like the folds in the fabric. And I was just like, I was so dejected after that. Like, he just like I thought that he was like building me up, and then he just immediately was like, no, you're not any good at that. Everybody can do that. I was like, no, we're better. I'm better at drawing the designing costumes than you, but like, you're good at drawing the folds in the pants. I was like, cool, thanks, guy. real backhanded
mean,
compliment on that one. But I am
will say that
pretty good at it. So
having dealt with a bunch of notes today where the artist didn't get the folds right in the pants, there's an art to it that is
I'm not the
Hey,
best at
by
it.
the way,
But...
hey, you should Google Alan Silberberg, who was one of the original creators. I feel like we could get him on board. Like, you and him could remake Student Bodies.
Alan Silverberg?
Silberberg.
Silber. How do I spell this?
Silber. Silberberg.
Okay. I mean, that's still a Jewish last name. And I'm looking at this guy, and I think this guy's probably Jewish. So I'm just saying we got that going for us. You know, because
calls Meet the Latkes and Meet the Matzah. So
yeah.
Probably.
Because you guys know that we secretly control everything, right? That's why this podcast only has 200 listeners. That's how I want it. That's what I'm going for, you guys. Every time somebody's like the secret cabal of Jewish, it's like, where's my cut? Where's my cut?
So here's the thing that I've just decided.
Yeah.
We are gonna reach out to Alan Silberberg, one of the creators of Student Bodies, who has some books coming out this month, and we're gonna interview him on the podcast and talk about Student Bodies. I think that would be a fun thing for us to do.
I think it's possible if there's not another artist drawing the cartoons on this, written and illustrated by Alan Silberberg. I think we might be in trouble because I said that the cartoons sucked. And it looks like I think he drew the cartoons. No, but I'm gonna walk it back a little bit because that was for comedic effect. I was being exaggerated. I do think that they I do think that the guy sneezes and then boogers come out of the thing. It was a little bit childish for then these are teenagers. But I think I also admitted that when I was 15 years old, I wasn't drawing anything any more clever than that either. So
and it also is the stuff that you could animate for the budget that they probably had.
Yeah, for sure. The style wasn't the issue. So that's going to be my caveat on that. The style of drawing wasn't the issue. I think that the audience today, the kids today are a little bit more sophisticated, and booger jokes aren't going to fly. They're just not going to fly. I don't think that works. I don't even think that works with Kara and Cassie as much as it did with us. Right? Because when we were kids,
booger jokes ever worked for me. But
when we were kids, Sega had a game called Booger Man on the Sega Genesis, and the subtitle to Booger Man was a pick and flick adventure. And I'll tell you, us 10-year-old boys, we thought that was the height of comedy. It's a pick and flick adventure, right? Like when you pick your nose and you flick your boogers, because he's Booger Man, and that's what he does. He shoots boogers out of his nose at the bad guys, and he can he can use his boogers to do different things. It's his superpower. So I do think that, it was a little bit more. That was the 90s, right? We were coming off of Nickelodeon and everybody getting slimed all the time. So it makes sense, right? Just Alan Silberberg, please come on our podcast. Yeah.
We're gonna finish this podcast and then we're gonna tweet him and be like, "Hey, Alan, want to come talk to us about Student Bodies?"
Yeah,
it's gonna be so good. Wow,
just
got away from us.
I know we should have ended 40 minutes ago, right? Before we shouldn't have even done the Doctor Strange thing. It was we've been talking for a long time. We went off on all these tirades, these tangents and stuff like that. We don't need to talk about Doctor Strange, but then we did, and then it led us here because it's the multiverse of madness. It's not the multiverse of let's all be cool and chill. It's the multiverse of madness, Amanda. And what's more insane than starting at Doctor Strange and ending at, should we have the creator of Student Bodies on our podcast in the year 2022? Which tells you that we have no grand plan for this podcast of it ever being anything, when we're not, because we already talked about Jamie Ellman, the star of Student Bodies, who I think is a totally reasonable person for us to track down if he even still has a publicist. I don't know what kind of stuff he's doing right now, right?
Yeah, he's been doing been doing like
he's doing VO
edits.
stuff and that sort of thing. I don't know that he necessarily has a publicist, right?
He's been doing Star Wars video games.
No, he's working. He's a working actor. Like I'm not throwing shade. I'm just saying he's not. I don't think he's at the level where we got to like go through his agent. You know what I mean?
But look, we could have probably reached out to him to be on the podcast, and instead we've decided.
But instead we're like, let's get the creator of the show and talk to him about student bodies.
I just feel like you would have more insight into how to remake student bodies than the actor. Having known a lot of actors, I feel like actors are like, yeah, it was a good time, but wouldn't necessarily.
How do you think he's gonna feel when I say to him, like, so Alan, I've never written anything. Not once. Not once. We had to do a screenplay for class in film school. So I did that.
I'm gonna write the whole thing.
That's the one time. But I really believe that I can write this. Do you think he's gonna be like, follow your bliss? Like, do you think he's gonna like? I think like that's the real question for me is he gonna be like, if you think you can do it, then you should do it, or he's gonna be like, oh, you have no idea how hard it actually is, and like you like this takes
probably
actual
a little
skill.
bit of both.
Maybe a little bit of both.
And I will say, like of all the things, like here's just like pitching 101, because again, I've been in these like pitching workshops all week, but it's like, why are you the right person to make this particular project? And I will say, Mike, you are one of the right people to make this particular project.
That's what I'm saying. Like we've talked about all sorts of stuff in the past, and we've talked about it in like a joking, like, oh, we're serious. I'm really like legitimately serious that like there is like literally I can't think of a better person. If there's another person out there who had the high school experience of drawing comics to try to impress girls and then ending up going in a completely different direction in his adult life, but that's kind of still the same thing. And it's like, but like, at what point am I putting too much of myself into it? Like, does Cody have a podcast? Like, right? Like, but like, where do we pull that back? Actually, you know what? Maybe the new Cody has a podcast. Instead of doing comics, maybe the new Cody has a podcast. Maybe she has. I will say,
I think that you and Alan are going to get along, and I will say that this Alan guy, I like him because he did a little cartoon on December 21st that said, "Just get your vaccine, wear a mask, start behaving like you're on Survivor." Anyways, it just he's pro mask and vaccine, so good in.
The next time we record is going to be with you in Indonesia. But also, I'm going to put this out there. You're going to be in Indonesia. You're going to work during your working hours. And then you're going to have like nothing to do cuz you like I'm hoping that you develop some relationships and make some friends over there, right? Like obviously that'll be a part of it, right? And so you'll have people. But at the same time, I think you're going to find yourself with more free time than you do at home. Do you think that while you're in Indonesia, you could really work on this? And when you're back, one of the first things that we do is we have Alan Silberberg on the podcast
and we talk about our student bodies. Which okay, so here's the thing.
It gives me time to write an episode because I can write 22 pages in a couple of months.
Why don't you? Okay, what I can commit to is trying to figure out who actually has the rights to this thing.
Yeah.
And then it is a thing that while I'm there, I have projects that I'm working on pitch decks for. And it is something that I do plan on spending a lot of my spare time, like just doing more of the thing that I do all the time and that I love. So it's all good. We should wrap up this podcast and then just continue to talk, the two of us, because I feel like now we started in like we should do this, like we should buy a bar, and then it turned into a joke. And then we did the Breaker High thing, which I still think is a great idea. And it's very doable. It's very good. But then we've circled all the way back around to like, this is a real thing that you and I could do. Like, this is like no joke. This is a real thing that you and I absolutely have the skill and experience to put together the pitch for. And like, maybe I'm not the writer at the end of the day, but to get this off the ground, maybe I am, right? Like maybe I can do that. So like, yes, thank you guys for listening. This has been an episode. It's like, I didn't podcast at all last week, so that's what I'm going to blame 2 hours and 44 minutes on. There's so much in me and I had to get it out. We've been doing this for 80 episodes. My goodness.
We've been doing. Here's the thing, Amanda. We've been doing this for 80 episodes.
I know.
This nonsense. So Thunderquack, right? That's not including the, I don't, how many episodes of Arrow are there? We did all of that, right?
So many Arrow episodes.
Not to mention all of the Star Wars content that I've done over the years, and then Pullbox Podcast and every other defunct podcast that was a bad idea that I did for a little while and then stopped doing. On that note, hey guys, we're bringing back Pullbox Podcast next week. Curtis and I are going to be doing so because there's no Marvel stuff right now. To do enough set episode of there we had the conversation of like, oh, we go back, but obviously we want Amanda to be a part of that.
Aw, thank you.
So we're not going to do that right now. Curtis and I are going to talk about the first volume of Why the Last Man, which sort of going back into a book that we would have done back in the day. It's surprising that we never did Why the Last Man with all the Brian K. Vaughan stuff that we did on Pullbox. And we're gonna talk about another book called Monstress, M-O. This is the brain fog. This is the COVID brain fog. Is like spelling a word out loud is difficult to do. Monstress. It's kind of a cool book. It's a little bit of effort to get through. The first volume is over 200 pages and it can be a little bit dry at times, but there's something there. By the end of the first volume, you're like, okay, now we got a story. But unfortunately, it takes 200 pages to get there. I will have lots more to say, but I do think it's worth a read because I think I'll probably read the next volume. Keep going with it. But Why the Last Man is one of the best comic books of the last 15, 20 years. And with a very bad to mediocre television adaptation. So we're going to talk about that next week, me and Curtis. You're also going to get an episode of Off the Record this week because technically Off the Record should be next week, but because Curtis and I didn't record Pullbox Podcast last week because I was sick, I owe you guys an episode somewhere. So this week you guys are going to get an Off the Record, and then next week you're going to get a Pullbox / Thunderquack. Because it'll be in this feed. Like you don't have to go subscribe to something else, and you'll get it early on Patreon and all that stuff. But for all intents and purposes, it will be an episode of the Pullbox Podcast with me and Curtis. So that's cool. That's exciting. I'm excited to bring that back because that's the one of all of the shows that we used to do that I miss doing because Curtis makes me read stuff that I wouldn't otherwise read. And then I guess in 2 weeks. I'm gonna figure that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I'll pull in a guest. We'll figure. I got 2 weeks to figure it out. But you'll have another episode of the Thunderquack Podcast with a special guest. Look, guys. At the end of the day, it'll probably be Curtis. He's the fallback on this one. But I'll try and find somebody else. I'll try and pull in somebody different. You guys can tweet suggestions at me if you want. I might not listen because I'm going to do whatever I want because there's only 200 people listening. There's no low risk, high reward, low risk, no reward.
There you go.
So it really doesn't matter either way. That's it. I got to edit this podcast. So we're done. Thank you guys for listening. And we're going to reboot Student Bodies.
Stay safe, everybody. Wash your hands and be kind to one another.
Follow the Thunderquack Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching the Thunderquack Podcast. You can support us in 3 ways. First, by heading to the podcast service of your choice and leaving a rating and review. Second, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch from your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack to kick in with your monthly pledge of support and get cool rewards like early access and extended episodes. The Thunderquack Podcast is the official podcast of thunderquack.com. Head to thunderquack.com to discover more great podcasts.